My name is Ashanti, and welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. Today is a special edition. Today is called Education Monthly. Now, I don't know what you know about education or what you know about me, but I was a teacher for 10 years, administrator for 3. I love educators. I think educators are amazing. Not only are they hilarious, but this show is going to be about education, focused on what we see, what we hear, what we know about education, but also some of the amazing and sometimes wildly hilarious things happening in education. I think we need to bring more joy back to education. And what we're going to do in these conversations is begin this process. My co-host will be Donovan Taylor Hall. If you don't remember him, he's from episode 152. He's also known as Donofriend. And I'm excited for what we're going to get to do in these next few episodes. So this is not really an intro. This is a short, just letting you know what's new for today. And we hope that you will enjoy this. If you know a teacher, educator, please share this with them. If you know someone who's thinking about becoming a teacher, educator, share this with them. Let them know that there are some folks talking about education in a really new and hopefully entertaining way. But more than anything, people who love the power of education. So please enjoy Education Monthly, episode 1. We hope you enjoy it. See you soon, folks. Take care. Bye now.
You already pretty much did your number 2 right now, Donovan. And so what you could do is you could tee up Ashanti for his number 2.
Yeah, Ashanti, tell me about your number 2. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Like,
no, I know. I just needed to get it out because you kept saying my number 2. So, Ashanti, what are you?
Okay. Well, on the mental app that I'm on now, every day they have a daily deuce, so the daily deuce is like it's like somebody telling a story. So it's like, yeah,
it's called the daily deuce.
It is. It's like,
it's because like guys, a lot of times when you take a number 2, you're like just on Twitter or Instagram.
So it's supposed to be referring
so it's
to
like a more productive poo. Yeah.
Wow.
Listen to this.
Private
production.
Hey, what's up, folks? So this is Education Monthly. I'm Ashanti Branch, founder of Ever Forward Club. I was a teacher for 10 years and administrator for 3. And now I get to do this work on the outside of schools, coming back in. And today I get to be with my friend, my brother Donovan. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. My name is Donovan Taylor Hall, aka Donofriend. My background is in positive youth development and social emotional learning. Right now, I am a youth advocate who focuses on mental health of young people as well as youth empowerment. I believe deeply that kids who feel better do better, and I'm so happy to be a part of this wonderful conversation with this wonderful man.
Oh, man. Well, look, tell me, what are you seeing and what are you experiencing? What's hot for you right now in the field of education? What are you experiencing right now?
Lessons from the field.
Lessons from the field.
I had this idea for this activity that shows what struggling looks and feels like, but it's so silly and it really like asks kids to be silly. It's just pretending, or when you put the treat like a cookie on your forehead and you have to like get it into your mouth without using your hand. And so you're sitting there like flailing and dropping and failing and over again. And it feels kind of pointless, but it's like, and I told them there's going to be a cash prize and the cash prize is going to be $1. And I was like, if you invest this in Bitcoin, and I was like, this is genius. And I'm just terrified of doing it. I'm terrified of doing it because I don't know if I can get kids, but I'm like, bro, it's so funny. And it's right after I tell this super embarrassing story about myself. And I'm like, now I want you all, I'm going to give you an opportunity to come up here, and then because we're talking about struggling, and then the second part is about suffering, and I'm not going to have kids get up and be like, what makes you suffer? So I just felt like that was a good idea, but honestly I'm just terrified of trying it.
Do it. I mean, decide on what the stakes are. Like what's at stake if you don't try it, and then just go through the scenario. What's at stake if you do try it? Like say you try it and it doesn't go well. Do you lose anything Do you gain some knowledge? It could be just those kids in that moment, that day, it didn't work. It may not be that it doesn't work. And so I think like if you just want to test it, I believe the D school the D school motto is bias towards action. We just try stuff. We try it. I gave my best to it. It didn't work. No problem. And I got to be careful because this is what I do. And I'll be like, man, I did a bad job. And I have to be careful that I don't like let one group of students. When I went to Galileo, San Francisco, I don't think Ryan went there, but literally it was like my worst workshop. I made a video about it because I was so upset about it, like doing a horrible job. Right, it was right before we were going to the Surgeon General event. And I realized that is the hardest part. Is like I took it personal. I took it personal that they weren't paying attention. I took it personal that so many of them are on their cell phones and the teachers weren't really like the cell phone was an issue there, right? And I took it personal that I was giving my best and it wasn't working. And I realized what I had to realize, and I talked to Ryan about this when we did an interview in DC, is I felt like, who am I to be getting an award from the Surgeon General when I can't even get 300 freshmen to like pay attention to something that I think is important and potentially life changing? And I think I was using this moment as a definition of my whole life. And it's only this moment. It's only this 1 hour. It's this one workshop. And so therefore you go back to the drawing boards. Okay, what can I do better? I can't change them. So I need to figure out what parts did I give my best? Yeah, I gave my best. That's all I got. I can't give more than my best. And I think that's what I want to encourage you to is like, try it. Try the new stuff. Test it out. Test it out on the audience. If that audience is high risk because people in the audience are going to be watching you for other work, then don't try it. But if you got an audience where you can say, I'm gonna try some stuff and it may not work, but hey, I'm still gonna hold my space. I can recover. Oh, you know what? That didn't work. I tried this thing with you all. Man, forget it. We're gonna try something new, right? And you just boom. You just easy.
But
like
it's still that's what's funny about this is that even if it doesn't work, it's just going to look even more like a struggle. Well, it's like, oh, cool. Well, either you do it or we all struggle in trying to get this thing to go, right? But I think when I left an experience with high schoolers that they were just super disengaged. And I had like the first audience, like the first row, they were in it. And this is after like 7 schools where kids were like into it. Like I left my flyers and I always take like by option, you can take it or leave it. And no one took a flyer. Like they were just ready to leave. And it was my shortest presentation. And the first thing I thought was like, oh, well, I obviously can't help high schoolers. It's like the first thing I went to was like, well, I guess I better stick to middle schoolers. And so then I had to sit down and practice like curiosity over judgment and just to be like, what felt like it was missing? Like, what could I do differently next time? And that allowed me to like grow and not take it so personal versus like having to make it about like, oh, well, you're just not good for these kids. And that school, those kids were intense, bro. And not the way you would think. Like this is like the Hun School of Princeton. So these kids were like intense. They were like, I have tests to study for. I don't need this. And I'm like, okay.
This is like 1 hour of your whole life. You imagine in a week, you get 168 hours. Let's say if this 1 hour could change your life and you missed this 1 hour, like that would be a sad thing. But what if this 1 hour could absolutely elevate you for the rest of your life? Now, right now, if you spend your time being focused on your neighbor, you're going to cause them to miss out on what they may need in this moment. And you also could be causing them detrimental because they're going to miss out on something that could benefit them. So I really try and paint two sides of the picture. Like, am I being selfish in this moment? Am I like wanting people to pay attention to me? So ask yourself, when you try and get your friend's attention because you want to tell them something, ask yourself, why am I making myself more important than what's happening in this room? Right?
I love that.
You're going to go to lunch after this. You're going to go to homework after this. You're going to go to homeroom. You're going to go wherever. You're going to get to talk to people all the rest of your life. I'm only asking you for this 45, 1 hour, 2, whatever time it is, to just be focused on you. Be a little selfish right now. And when your neighbor tries to talk to you, maybe just say, hey, not right now. Like, just really own the fact that if in this moment, I don't know that I can offer anything that's going to change your life, but I can say that there have been people who have come to these experiences whose lives have been dramatically transformed. It may not be you, but what if it is you? What if you've been wondering, why do other people get opportunities that come in their life? And like, why do other people get these opportunities? you may be missing them because they come to you and you're so busy talking to your neighbor, you miss the opportunities that are for you. Maybe you wonder when you get to have your big break. What if this opportunity is the key that unlocks your big break, but you're too busy looking at everyone else around you? And I just invite you to just ask yourself, and I try and like not make it about me, because I think it's a context between like not making it about what that I think I have something special, but I do think what I have could potentially save you some time in life of not getting stuck in booby traps that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that perspective a lot, because I think I kind of did that last time, but it was just new because it was high schoolers. Like I said, middle schoolers were like falling out of their chairs, like to answer questions. And so I was like, I don't want to like kind of just talk to them. I did get kids to share their thoughts a few times, but I really pushed this idea of like, very similar to what you said, but I kind of want to use your language a little bit more, because it was pushing more around being brave. And it's like, and a lot of times in these conversations about young people, we don't invite you in. And I want to invite you into this space. Like, this is not me as the expert. This is me being here with you,
that's right.
trying to help you learn. And I was like, and if you feel like you're not taking anything away from this, the least that you could do is let other people have that experience. And so it's just interesting. So I'm going to see how this one goes. With this high school, and with much more of a focus on the storytelling kind of piece of it, because I feel like that's when young people, like I even had kids say to me, like, I just wasn't paying attention until you started telling your story. And I'm like, all right. But it was completely opposite. I really thought middle schoolers would be like, this is boring, I don't know what I'm doing. But they were like in it. They were involved in it. And then the high schoolers, because I had this really fun activity I wanted to do, but I think I'm going to keep it for middle school, because I just think that high schoolers, that pressure, especially without building, like without me knowing them, to come in and ask them to be vulnerable and to be silly looking in front of it just doesn't work. So I'm going to see how this one goes. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Well, I think, when you came to Lowell, when we did that workshop there, like getting people to volunteer, sometimes it takes like, you're just like crickets, right? So it's almost like just having it's almost like a longer wait time that's like, hey, I need about 10 volunteers. And then you're just like, come on, I need a couple of volunteers to help me with this. And what's happening is then they're sitting in there, they're asking themselves, oh, am I going to be the volunteer? And then they have to like navigate like, no one else is volunteering, so I don't want to be the only one. And then it usually takes, what ends up happening is one person will be like, let me do it, right? Or their friends, and when they do it, then other people will be like, oh, okay, I guess, say if one person is going to do it, then I'll do it. Then you have more volunteers than you need, so you almost have to be like, so I've had sometimes people just want to be on on stage. They just want to be, they want to be seen. So you're like, hey, this will be a win-win. I'll let you be seen. You help me with this piece. And then just helping them make sure that they know that, hey, I know you're on stage, but I need you to be holding space for your peers, right? And sometimes those are tricky, right? Especially when students who have this social clout, and then you have to like correct them, but also being willing to say, I want you here, but if you can't handle this, I'm gonna have you have a seat, right?
Yeah,
because I can't sacrifice everybody in this room for you feeling like you need to be on stage. And I want you to be seen. I want you to be uplifted. Right. And I think that's so important too.
Yeah, that's dope. Well, I didn't mean to hijack time thinking about this, but high schoolers they're tough, man. They're tough. And it's unfortunate, because when I've had breakthroughs with them, they need this work the most. Like, middle schoolers are open to it and they're curious about it, but high schoolers know the struggle, and they know they know about their suffering and stuff like this. So it's really about just trying to like engage and connect with them in a way that helps them feel safe, but also like ask them to step up and kind of step into this conversation that they may not ever get, or it may be years until this conversation comes up for them again. So I'm going to pick your brain another time. Great. I have this presentation next week, and I'm gonna get some feedback from my bureau, but I'm really curious around like an interactive aspect of it. Like not just like what do you think, but like something specifically, like a takeaway that they can have. That's like the last piece that I feel like I'm missing from this right now.
Beautiful. I think that we should have a space, because I think, imagine how many teachers who teach every day to the same kids are feeling that same thing, but they don't just feel it with one group of kids for 1 hour or 2 hours. They feel it every single day for 181 days. Imagine that, right? I get to come in hour and a half and I'm out, right? So if I do a bad job, let's chop it up to the next one. But if I'm showing up to the keys the next day, I did a bad job yesterday. I'm back again today. What?
Yeah. I mean, and plus it's like a huge part of the work that I'm doing right now is like learning and trying and doing something new, like what that brings out in us. And it's vulnerability. And you think about kids who may not have access to say I'm feeling vulnerable or this is hard for me, like to look bad in front of other people. You have one bad experience in a classroom and you write it off. Like that, I just can't do this subject, right? Whether that's a teacher yelling at you or classmates making fun of you or you just having an internal kind of debate with yourself. It's really about reshaping learning. So for me, it's like, for me to not lean into that discomfort would be going against what I'm teaching young people right now, which is like, how do you practice self-compassion when you're learning and growing? And that's a useful skill for adults and for kids. And if we can create spaces where kids can learn with adults, right? I don't feel like we have enough spaces for co-regulated learning, but learning to be compassionate when with yourself when you're trying to do something or you're trying to learn something new is a skill that is not exclusive to young people or to adults. It's something that we could be doing together. And what if we role modeled that for young people of like, yeah, this is tough and embarrassing, but I also like, it's not about me. I want to grow. I have to put myself in that position. Who knows? That could be the best activity. Like that could be so fun or it could be absolutely awful, but I know I'll never know if I don't try it.
And the last thing I'll say, Ryan, you gotta take over, Ryan.
I know, Ryan.
We keep telling you to jump in, and you keep slowing down. Look, what I'll say this last thing is that if you also give it as an opportunity to say, so this was me trying something new with you, and either did or didn't go well. Like you can just be able to make it another personal story where you get to say, man, if I'm can I be a little metacognitive? Can I be a little bit of, can I tell you what I'm thinking right now, what I'm feeling right now? Like, and then you get to be as real as you can be around. I was hoping it went better, but sometimes you see a few people laugh, maybe like you get a chance to like in real time, like share with them like the fear of like it not going well and reflecting on how you feel it went, you know?
But this is what's wild about this. And the presentation about struggling, when I talk about my struggle is it was the fear of trying something new because I didn't think I was good enough at it. And so I had a huge mess up with my viola when I had my only solo I ever got. I messed up really bad. And it should have been this like, yeah, but then I learned, but I quit. I just stopped because I was so embarrassed from that. And so I started to build this pattern of like, you only do what you feel like you're good at. And if you try it once and it's bad, you don't do it again. Yeah. So that is perfect because I directly talk about that.
I think one of the things what I learned this month, what did I learn this month as an educator? You know, actually, I'll tell you, because it happened actually this morning. So I created this one Instagram reel that my mentor, he left me this voicemail and he left a quote from Parker Palmer. And the quote was about the winter, the season of our life. Have you heard of Parker Palmer?
I have not. No.
So Parker Palmer is a longtime educator. Parker Palmer, and he talks about in this winter season of our life, about what we like what we're carrying, right? What we're carrying. And if I think of the quote, it says, I'll just give the gist of it. It's like facing fear, right? Parker Palmer, in the season facing fear. Let's see if I can find it. So in quote, it won't come up. It won't come up. But here's what I wanted to say about the idea of the fear. I think about the philosophy of facing fear, which actually makes sense. Like I'm a thinker, I'm an engineer. My brain like analyzes. Yes, I should face my fear. I have these fears that I'm worried about. I have these things I'm concerned about. I should do something with them. I should make good on like these dreams that I have. I should work hard for these dreams I have. I do. I know the fear is only false evidence appearing real, right? I have all these acronyms, face fear everything, or flee everything and run. With all those little acronyms about fear, is all philosophy. And then I realized this morning, as I was trying to jot down a dream this morning, I realized, oh, see, the philosophy of fear, of facing fear, is so much easier than the verb of facing fear. The verb of facing fear says, I made this post about my grandmother where I'm pretty much bawling the whole time, and I'm like, I'm not posting that. I'm not posting that. And what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of people saying, "Oh, he's just a big crybaby. He's just a big what's wrong with this guy?" Like every time I go to his channel, he's crying about something, and I feel like I'm crying. I'm too emotional these days, right? I went from being no emotion, funny and maybe angry if I hear him time to time, but no emotional variety. And then I was this morning saying, "Oh, I'm being afraid of the verb. I can make sense of the philosophy of it. I believe in the philosophy of facing fear. But when it comes to oh, I'm in this video crying about my grandmother, which I have the right to grieve over her loss. I have a right to, but I'm afraid to share it because I'm afraid of judgment." And then I'm wondering, well, why don't I just cry by myself and not share it? Well, here's what I also am thinking. The verb of fear says, how about somebody has to be the example to help more men not bottle all their stuff up? Because what do we keep seeing? Men are taking their lives. Men are substance abusing. They're abusing others. They're so many health factors are causing men to just bow out so early. And I was like, I don't know what men do who don't have connection to their feelings. I'm trying to remember how I was before. Are you just walking around angry all the time? Or are you stressed out? Are you having a maybe that's why men having heart attacks at a higher rate than everybody else, because you're not talking about it, or you're all the things you think about. And I was like, oh, that's what's happening. And so I have this video that I'm gonna share. I made a commitment this morning to share it. I'm kind of still embarrassed to share it. I'm kind of nervous to share it, but I am if I don't am I willing to share with my young people what the verb looks like, how complicated the verb is. I don't think it's easy. I can philosophize on how hard it is, but I also know how it feels to be I don't want to be judged. And so therefore I won't show this. And who am I doing it for, Ashanti? Or maybe I'm doing it for me. Maybe I'm doing it for me as a hope that it inspires somebody else, but I'm doing it for me. So anyway, that's what I'm learning about as an educator. And so when we're helping students to navigate through their stuff, if I haven't touched it or felt what it was like, I could easily just say to this kid, hey, it's just easy. Just do it. Just face that fear. Just go. But I know it. I know how it feels like. It almost feels like a brick, wall in front of you. And it's only this wide. You know what I'm saying? It's this wide. You could just go around it, kind of. It's actually, it's probably tall enough. You could probably even jump over it.
Yeah.
If you had to. But it feels like it's so menacing. And so that's the work. That's what I'm learning about today in my work.
It's wild because the presentation that I was just talking to you about, as soon as you said, what do those men walk around? I think because a lot of times our struggle, which really helps us understand and discover ourselves, when we don't take care of ourselves in the struggle, it turns into suffering. And so learning how to manage your emotions is a struggle. Learning how to deal with the dark parts of you is the struggle. But if people are constantly pushing it down, right, then it turns into suffering. And that's exactly what my presentation with young people is about. I had this experience, which I want to use for a TED Talk that I'm pitching, but I had this experience that I got to see fear and learning directly in the moment. And I will never forget this moment. And it's so connected to what you said. I was with this young person and I had to be an extra teacher in a classroom. Yeah. And I was in a math classroom. And this teacher, great teacher, he was just trying something. I'm not going to even put it on him, right? He just tried something, try to get some engagement up. But he gave the students a sheet of math problems. And he was like, and I'm going to call 5 of you at random to come up to the board and do the work. And so then everyone was like, oh, they got all up in arms. But I was specifically sitting next to a student who was constantly getting in trouble in certain classes. In my class, they were wonderful. And they were wonderful. We had a very strong relationship, but I never really struggled with that person in this class. But when I went to this class, I saw a completely different side of this person. And the teacher put the sheet in front of them and they physically turned their body away. That was the first thing they did. And then the teacher kind of slid the paper and then they slid the paper away. Right. And then they were like, the teacher said, okay, cool. You're going to be one of the people to go up, which really just ignited in this person like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go up there and I'm going to have to show everyone that I don't know. Right. And what's so unfortunate about school is that school is the place where you should be okay to not know something because you are there to learn. But because of all these limiting beliefs that we have around education that students have from society, from teachers, from parents, from peers, siblings, right? It happens. Even if you're a teacher who tries to challenge that, you're still going up against years of the beliefs around this, right? That's right. A means I'm a good person. F means I'm a bad student, right? And in reality, it's just an indicator of how engaged you are with your education. So they did everything possible to try to get kicked out. There was another person at our table because I was sat next to them. I was like, all right, I'm going to sit next to you because you're acting a little bit wild right now. I sat next to them. They were like reaching at the other person, trying to take the pen out of their hand. They were like, I'm bored, like yelling and getting really aggressive and stuff like that. And so eventually the teacher was like, I'm going to have to send you out. And I'm like, that's what they want. So I was like, let's go on a walk, right? Let's just go for a walk. And I walked with them and I talked. And eventually, because of the relationship building, right? Because we'd spent, this is our second year together at this point. I was like, what's different? What's different from when you were in my class and you answered a question and you jumped up and screamed, I know the answer versus this one. And they said, I don't want to go up there and look dumb. I don't want to look stupid in front of my classmates. And they said, I would rather get kicked out of class than to embarrass myself like that in front of everybody. And to me, immediately, I was like, well, that makes sense. That makes complete sense because you feel so vulnerable up there being asked to do something that you don't understand yet. So I was like, look, I am crap at math. Let's go sit down and try to do this together. Like, let's just go back in. Will you try it with me? Like, I don't know. We can figure it out. We can bug the other kid at the table because he knows what he's doing, right? But like, let's go in there and do it together. So we went in there and we worked on it for a while. And the teacher could tell, like, okay, I'm not going to call you up, blah, blah, blah. I'll have volunteers. I was just kidding, which is great. It's like a good little like redirect because I was like, bro, are you kidding me? And which again, we're all trying and learning. And I could see right away that he learned. And eventually I kept asking the other kid, like, hey, are we doing it right? And he's like, oh, you need to like remember this. And here's something I do that helps me with this. And so eventually he looks over and he's like, hey, that's right. And I could see in my student's face this just immediate disbelief of like, no. And he's like, yeah, that's right. Like, you did it. And so then the teacher asked who wants to go up. And me and the other student were like, yo, you should go up. You should go up and try it. And so they went up to the board and it was like pulling teeth. Like it felt like 17 spirits were dragging her back. Like I could just see like, oh, I don't want to do it. So they wrote their answer on the board and then they covered it. They covered it and they were like, all right, your turn. And I could see this pleading and I was like, you're okay. Like it's not scary. We're okay. We got this. Right. Yeah. And then they moved it and it was like, you're right. And there was this huge celebration, right? Because this person overcame their fear. But then we sat down and I was like, cool, we have 6 more problems to go. Right. We're in it now, but now you know that you're safe in it. And I always think about that moment, even as an educator right now, like what I was just saying is like, sometimes it feels safe for us to stay where we think that we can be protected. But that's when learning is about safety. And for me, learning shouldn't be about feeling safe and kind of how you are. It should be about expansion and growth. But I think the act of learning, especially the way that we do learning in schools, asks young people to be very vulnerable in ways that feel emotionally unsafe to them. And so I think hugely of this, but it's the same thing when it goes to men. It's like, if you don't have safe spaces where you have men who can actually open up and normalize and say, this is how I feel. Like when I tell young people it's okay to ask for help, I have to sometimes remind them that maybe people won't give you that help. Maybe you might get pushback on that. And that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that that wasn't the person.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you say it's okay to be emotional and to be vulnerable, and then you send these young people out to their friends who don't know how to handle that, and they get emotional in front of their friends, and their friends make fun of them for it, you almost do more damage to the idea of vulnerability than like what you're trying to push off. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it does.
It's like some big level connection making.
Yeah.
Ashanti, the article that you sent me, Ryan.
Oh yeah.
About self. Yeah. So just a heads up, that's like a can of worms for me because a big part of my curriculum is on self-determination. And so when I was talking about co-regulated learning experiences and giving young people like the opportunity to feel independence, like I loved that, but I don't know if I can like be concise with that in the amount of time. Just to be clear, I mean, I see how I could connect, but that's like
maybe save it for next time.
Is that the Edutopia? That's the Edutopia article?
Yeah, okay. I opened it and I was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, I should probably chill out because this is like, that's what I found out was like, how do you, even with the work that I do with young people, if they don't feel like they're actively choosing it, it loses power. And so that's why I use the language of offering with kids is because they're so often not given the opportunity to be independent in their choices or what they're learning or what they're doing. And so if they feel like, hey, I choose to learn this, it adds a level of determination and it adds this level of like self-efficacy and autonomy that young people desperately need to build self-determination.
So maybe we just do it like this. Maybe we just say like, we are next week in each of these episodes, we're going to have an article that we're going to probably review or something new in education. There's an article in Edutopia that just came out about teen mental health crisis. And next week we're going to talk about that article. So maybe sometime we'll be able to give them a heads up and sometime we won't, but we can just say if they want to go read it and then they can, we can just do that for next week. So maybe that's what we do.
Next month, right? Because it'll be like
next month. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. Month. Oh, wow. Okay. So maybe we say, just like we just did, maybe there's an article that just came out. We can't even begin to get into it right now, but maybe you name that. You just say, look, I got a lot to say about this. Next month we are going to dig into it. And and we can just tell folks, hey, if you have an article that you've been looking at that you want to bring to a conversation, email it to us, right? Like send it to us and we will add it to our list of articles that are maybe we'll review 3 or 4 of them in one episode. But this being our first episode, we're just kind of testing the water of like how this conversation can flow and how we can be a voice in education.
I think I'll just use that, and then it's a video too, so I might even just rip the audio from it and just play it in the episode when I edit it.
Beautiful.
And so I guess maybe for the next like 15 minutes we could do the last parts. Like, what are you taking away from today?
Sorry. Oh, that's so funny. Wow. This is so funny. So I was like, well, let me just find an article about vulnerability and emotions like for boys and students. And I was like, because then we can just be like, well, we found this article since we were talking so much about that. And I clicked on the one that sounded the most relevant to this conversation. And I'm scrolling down and it's Ashanti. It's like the first thing I see is a picture of Ashanti, and it's like Ashanti Branch, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is perfect."
Conflict of interest.
Yeah. Wow, that's so funny.
Man,
that's so funny. Well, you are truly
Thank
a
you,
trendsetter.
Man. Now you got me curious on which one that one is, right? Like which
it's kqed.org.
Yes, I remember that one. What are we taking away from this today? And I'm really thankful that you asked the question, right? I think one of the things that's one thing I'm taking with me is like, I want to support educators who are trying to do this work. And I want to figure how can my 20 plus years of experience add value to educators, not just only through PD, but through even community of practice of educators who are coming together. So thank you for mentioning you were going to ask me some questions. You know, I'm always here for you, but I wonder how many educators out there who don't even have anybody they could even pick a brain from, right? Like, you know, and I think if a random person send me an email saying, "Hey, I want to pick your brain," I've spent like an hour before replying to a message from an educator who was struggling and realized I don't have the capacity for this as a scalable thing. How do I create? So that's why we're trying to, you know, I mean, my vision, I'm trying to figure out how can I create like a coaching program for educators, like a group coaching kind of circle, which is something that I'm really trying to work on for this 2024. Because I think we're losing so many teachers in the profession. So that's what I'm taking not only to, you know, my office, which is like my classroom, but as I'm taking to the work and ever forward, how can we create a better space for educators to get the support they need so they don't feel like they have to leave the profession, at least definitely not before they're really ready.
Yeah. And I think too, the larger picture is around like helping people take care of themselves in sustainable ways, and people who are tasked at taking care of other people need that work the most. Those are usually the people who are most underserved. I mean, I'm like teachers and nurses and social workers. Like anytime someone tells me they are any of those things, I immediately like shout because I'm like, thank you. I just want to help and support you. But I think that that's like a missing piece. I know for me working with you, your mentorship has helped me so much, and it's only been a few sessions where it's like, wow, I've learned so much from that. But just being seen and heard, I think, is really powerful. And when I try to engage young people into the classroom, into the space, a big part of it is like, I see you and I hear you, and I want to hear about your experience and how you feel. And that again is not something that we should just put onto kids or just put onto adults, but it's just something that helps humanity thrive. Is this ability to be able to be seen. And it's like, if you're talking about these struggles that young people are going through and they're not in the conversation, we're missing a piece of it. And so if we're talking about what teachers are going through without creating opportunities or spaces for them to be in these conversations and do the work, then it's a missed opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
But capacity is tough, man.
Oh man, you didn't say it. I heard this saying that says, there's something that babies will cry for and soldiers will die for that we often overlook with students, and that's recognition. And I think that the understanding that our young people sometimes are looking for just to be seen, just to be heard. I heard someone say even recently, like the desire to be seen can be so heavy, so pressurized, so forceful. It's like a drug. And I think that what happens with students with the devices in their pockets is that every time that vibration goes off, it is a sign that somebody is wanting to recognize me and know me and hear from me or alert me. Somebody is something in my world is connected to me, and therefore and the draw to that. If I'm in a school building that doesn't feel connected, that doesn't feel like I belong, I will grab the device out of my pocket, even if I'm in the middle of class and I'm not supposed to have it out in, because this is something I know that somebody is directly communicating with me.
Yeah, they're connected to you when a lot of young people don't feel connected to their educational experience. And it's like, which one do you think they're going to move towards?
That's right.
I mean, that's why I spent so much time building relationships with students and really trying to get to know them, because I'm like, this class may not be their favorite class, but I want them to have a space where they can feel seen.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? And to feel heard. I think a lot about class clowns. I think a lot about the students that are really disengaged with their educational experience.
Yeah.
And I say that instead of saying kids with bad grades.
Yeah.
But I've seen this come out in class clowns so much. And I try really hard to like make it clear that what they're doing is seeking recognition. And if humor is something I'm good at, I'm going to do whatever it takes to feel seen today. And I don't care if it's by my classmates or my teachers, right? It's like same way that there's those kids who are like jumping over things to help. I just want to help. What can I do? What can I do? What they're asking for is like, it's a connection seeking behavior. Yeah. And so with young people with humor, it's like helping them understand and helping them see them as a full, right? Yeah. You don't have to be this. It's another mask that people put on. That's but right. I see it happen, especially with my boys. It's like, I will do whatever I got to do to get a laugh out of somebody, because that means somebody saw me. That means that somebody recognized me today. And I think it's a powerful thing. And it's tough because it also acknowledges that these behaviors are disruptive and stuff like that.
That's
but
right.
Maybe we need to look at that. Maybe we need to pay attention to why kids feel the need
That's right.
to seek these connections if they're not getting them in their classroom.
Well, I'll leave that one as my final thought. I'll take my final thought. I'll take my final thought from that. My final thought would be, teachers, when you see a kid who is doing some behavior to get attention, don't make it a negative thing. Encourage them that I want to acknowledge you and recognize you for positive things. So help me. Let's find ways that we can acknowledge you and recognize you for positive things. And I think to use that as a tool. So that's my offering to a final thought today. Is that
can I add on?
Can you do Donovan? Can you do like your final thought, and then just do like this has been an Education Monthly. Thanks for listening. And then
don't make me do that. If I have to do scripted lines, watch. You're gonna see me go. Okay, you'll get to see it. Watch. Thanks for listening. I think for me, the final thought, building off of that, is even when I recognize behaviors as connection-seeking behaviors versus attention-seeking behaviors. And that was a huge shift for me in the classroom. Even with some of the most annoying behaviors, just recognizing, especially middle schoolers, that these kids were seeking connection and versus attention. Attention is a negative thing, but in reality, they want to be seen. And so that's a mindset shift for me that helped me practice compassion, especially on the days where those behaviors were super obnoxious.
Awesome. Well, folks, that's our first Education Monthly. Thank you, Donovan. So good to have you here, and we're looking forward to more. Like this podcast could actually go longer than an hour, but we're gonna do our best to keep it under. But we're gonna play around with it. Like there's so much more to say and more to do. And education is a topic that I know is in my heart, and I can feel it coming from your heart too, brother. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's always an honor.
Taking Off the Mask podcast is produced by Ryan Louie and graphics by Kelly Wong. Guests are managed by Dan Paloma, and the podcast is edited by Samuel Matingo. We'd like to thank everyone who's been a part of the creation of this podcast, and for every guest that has been a part of the show, you are now a part of the Taking Off the Mask family. The Taking Off the Mask podcast is brought to you by the Ever Forward Club, and if you like what you've heard today, please subscribe, write a 5-star review, and share this with someone. We look forward to having more conversations that matter. And please remember, there is more to you than anybody can see by just looking at you. Thank you.